opening us up with his big belly laugh.
Yeah. All his little sound effects.
Oh.
It's pretty entertaining. I miss it. Here
We're good.
All right. The stream is live.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
I usually wait till I see us talking on my end, and then I'll hit just to make sure that it all gets on there.
We're up if you want to go and roll the intro.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Y'all ready?
We're ready.
Yeah.
Welcome to Creative Makers Podcast, episode 87. I'm Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks, and we have BJ with Byroms Custom Woodworks, Mustachio, the wooden mustache, and we're missing our other co-host to complete it out, which is Matt with Wackey Works. He's not going to be able to make it today, but we're going to try to do our best without him. And today we have the super talented Casey Reeves from CReeves Makes. How you doing, sir?
Good. How's it going, everybody? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, bud.
You should feel good. He didn't mess up the intro this time.
Yeah, we did it.
You got your notes. You got your script.
I'm reading it. I will now write everything down from now on so I don't mess it up.
There you go.
My cheat sheet. How's everybody today?
Very good. Very good.
Good.
How's
Good,
the time
yeah.
change treating everybody?
Awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we could just stick to this time, I will be perfectly fine. I love the sun up later in the evening, gives us more time to do stuff after work. I don't mind going to work in the dark, but it's coming home in the dark that I hate.
Yep. Absolutely.
Throws you off. Like today, I was telling BJ before we started, it's like, man, it's just been totally off today. And it may be in part that we stayed up real late last night. I'm not going to mention names, but it was a pretty late night. And some guys wanted to talk. We watched the time change on the phones, and it's like, whoa, pretty late.
That's a little too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
It was
late.
far too late.
I mean, I can't say anything. I stayed up. We saw that the new Venom movie was out on Netflix, so we stayed up watching that, and then I watched. After my wife fell asleep, I watched Sicario.
Yeah, we just watched that.
Such a good movie.
Yeah.
That's one of those guilty pleasure movies that if I see it, it's like nothing else to watch. I'm going to click on that and watch it.
Yeah.
So
That's a good one.
movie. Yeah.
And it's crazy. It is. Pretty.
It is intense. Even that opening scene, you're just like, whoa, and then it just doesn't. The gas doesn't stop.
Well, even the second one, which I haven't seen the second one near as many times as the first one. The second one's the same way. It opens full throttle and it stays the whole way through, and it's like, all right, we gonna get a break now.
Yeah.
Now the second one is when the girl is abducted, right? Like they take one of the cartel leaders. Okay, yeah. I've watched them both. They're great. I think I saw them somewhere online, and I went and bought the Blu-ray. If you can even imagine, I have the Blu-ray. Have you ever heard that?
Nope.
I think I played it on the kids.
Physical content.
I think I played it on the kids' game player. I don't know which one it is, but yeah, there was some deal where you could rent the movie online and also buy the DVD or Blu-ray, whatever. I forgot what it was called. You had that option. They would send it to you.
Hey,
that was
nothing wrong with that.
Anyways, got off there a little bit. So why don't you carry it on, Mr. BJ? What we got?
Let's do this real quick. Hang on.
What's glue with you? What's glue with you?
I promise I only click that one time.
It's okay.
You know what? I've noticed that like StreamYard used to, when you selected certain things, it would keep it saved. Now I have to actually go in there every episode and make sure that it's recording locally because it goes back to default.
Interesting.
Oh. Huh.
So
Right.
maybe the loop part wasn't unchecked or something. I don't know. I failed to even check that this time. Who knows?
We'll mess with it later. Well, all right. Well,
yeah.
Let's just keep this cycle going. We're going to start off with our wonderful guest, Mr. Casey. What is going on in your shop this week?
This week, if you follow me on my standard channel, CReeves Makes, or also I've paired off a second channel for my guitar ventures. I've got a Reeves guitar craft channel as well. So I've been doing a lot of stuff on building some guitars right now, and a little bit of time, helping my son has been making some cutting boards and stuff on his own. I've kind of passed that torch onto him. So he's been coming out and kind of going through the scrap wood and putting together cutting boards. But I've been focusing my efforts on getting some guitars over the finish line. And today, actually, I had the customer over who I'm building one for, and went through the kind of like the final finishing touches on like the aesthetics of the guitar, like carving and sanding on some areas of it. And got a lot of good feedback and a lot of good boxes checked, if you will, and we're getting this thing close to finish. So yeah, it was a productive and good week.
There you go. Nice. Well, let's roll it over to the man, the myth, and again, the face of the podcast, Mr. Joey.
Nice.
What's up? Welcome everybody. In the shop this past week, work's been hectic. I have not had a whole lot of time. We're still prepping our garden. So if that's considered woodworking, maybe not. I did get to mount a pretty cool hose reel that I picked up that I saw on social media. So I put that in today. Self-retractable garden hose. Nothing exciting there, but I still have that project looming. I don't know if I'm going to get it done, and I'm starting to have a change of heart on the design, and I don't want to rush something to make it for, I would love to complete it for the competition. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I don't like the way it's coming out. And rather than just make something to throw up on the wall, because it's going to be for my hand tools, I'd rather, stop, pivot, and get something that I'm really going to like, and not make something just to finish a competition, and make it to where it's going to look aesthetically pleasing to me, because I wouldn't be happy with it. I don't think the way it's going to come out. So that being said, I'm not bowing out yet. I still have a little bit of time. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't know. That's probably not going to get done. And just work's been hectic, and I haven't had a whole lot of shop time. We're gearing up for a family celebration here at the end of the month, and that's been taking a lot of my time away from shop. I've been having to do a lot of things over the weekends, and that's usually the time that I have to be in here. BJ, you and I were talking about it. It's just sometimes when you're just dealing with work, you come home and just there's no drive to be out in the shop. My drive is to be out here is just to sit and relax and not be forced to have to get busy on making something, because I've done that in the past and I burnt myself out, and I don't want to do that again. So, so that's where I stand. I know it's going to be probably a letdown to Keith and Tony, but we'll try it again next year if I don't get this done, if I decide to just bow out. So, oh well. I'll probably get made fun of a lot. Yeah. And I'm kind of blaming you, because you kind of steered me that way. Your procrastination just got to me. I let it get to me.
Hey, I'll throw this out there. I'm proud of you. You got a new tool in. You opened the box. You got it set up, even if it is a garden, a water hose or whatever you said it was.
Hey,
I'm proud of you. It's not in a box. Well, we got to give the man credit for opening a box.
Yeah. Hey, that's. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
I did not.
Sometimes that's the biggest first step.
Yeah. And I even recorded, so it's going to be a reel, even that.
Hey.
So I do have proof.
Commitment.
Came out of the box.
Even made some content. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, anything else exciting going on down there?
No. So what about you, BJ? What you got going?
Well, let's jump it over to Matt. I'll go last.
Okay.
Oh, so I have to yet again. I feel like Joey and I should just record our
how's the
same
shop
thing from last
rebuild
week
coming along.
No, I did get some time out in the shop. I hauled out 3 buckets of dirt from my water main shut off just to get it kind of flat, because I want to. There's basically the water main that comes out of the ground, and then my supply line that goes under the slab to the rest of the house. So I just have those 2 spots where I got to cut the pink board and box that all out. I am having some issues because I had to reframe the box because it was all rotten. So I did get some pressure treated 2x4s cut, and I started framing that. I have a rotary like hammer drill, but it's one of the big Bosch like Bulldog corded ones, and I can't get the right angle because it's not deep enough. So I was almost on the fence about buying one of the Milwaukee ones that's like $350, like that M18. My buddy came over with it and he was using it. He's like, dude, do you have one of these? I was like, I don't have that one. I have an old school like plug-in Bosch one that works. Don't get me wrong. I did a channel in the slab with that Bulldog Bosch one, no problem at all, and just don't have the angle. So I'm gonna. I have a plug-in DeWalt drill that I might try because I just need the collet. I can't use the other drill with it because it just has like the hex attachment. So yeah, but I got one. I'm like a one nail a day guy. So I got one of the boards. I got one of the boards mounted. I gotta get the other 2 in, and I can drop that in there and close that darn hole up and stop talking about this.
And move on to that shop. We'll move on to that shop there.
Yeah, dude.
Your
that's
lumber
been looming.
back up.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna once I get that hole in the floor patched up, I can shift everything around in my shop like I was kind of talking about. So, yeah.
There you go.
What do you got, BJ?
Big project.
Well, not a lot. Just like Joe was saying, just work. I think every night this week I've gotten home around 8:00, and it's just get home, eat dinner, get the kiddo in bed, and then just kind of chill, watch some TV. But this weekend, because we're taking spring break off of work, my wife and I took the week off because my daughter's out of school, and wife wants to go camping. So Saturday I got up, or Friday night, I guess when I got home, I got out there and pulled some stuff out of the camper, just checking batteries, checking plumbing, making sure all that stuff is good. Found a few things that I need to fix. So found out that the tank heater switch got broke somehow. I don't know if it just failed, but somehow it failed in the on position. And when the tanks are empty, it's not exactly a good idea to have that tank heater on. So I had to figure out how to unplug it just so it wouldn't sit there and run while I'm trying to charge batteries and all that stuff. But parts should be in tomorrow to fix that. I did finally finished my daughter's dart or like tic-tac-toe dart game for school, which we had to make a slight adjustment because we were going to do it where it's the tic-tac-toe square, and then it has balloons in each square, and then you drop a rocket, a laser cut rocket with a screw on the end of it to pop the balloon. you need a lot more force to pop a balloon that's half inflated than we realized. And I don't feel safe giving a bunch of third graders a rocket with a suit with a needle or something on the end of it. I mean, we already had to put a screw on the end just because that's part of the project. But I'd have to sharpen that thing to such a point that if it bounced off and hit somebody, it's going through flesh.
Yeah.
So we called an audible, put a and decided to go with tissue paper instead, just so it's a little easier, at the end of the day. But got all that done, and of course, once it was done, it was Dad's turn to let's fancy it up. So played with the laser a little bit more, made some logos and graphics for it, but other than that, that's about it. I've just kind of been chilling,
That's super exciting to go on a camping trip. Yeah, that ought to be pretty fun.
We've got a lake. It's actually in my hometown. I grew up a 5-10 minute bike ride from this lake, from this RV park, and it's like $100 a night, full everything. And
Nice.
the place that we're gonna rent, they have a hot tub that comes with it.
Nice.
So you get your own private dock, private fire pit, and hot tub. And
that's what fancy.
That's what my wife wanted. So I was like, you know what, let's go do that. We'll go spend a night or two down there and just hang out. It's close enough to the house to where if we need to run back to the house, we're only about a 30-40 minute drive back to the house, and it's not that big of a deal. And I think the biggest reason I don't want to go too far is I found out this afternoon my 12-volt battery for the camper it's dead. The one of the storms that we had come through a while back blew the lid off the battery compartment, and it filled with water. So those lead acid batteries don't fare too well when they're sitting underwater for a while. So I just
do they make a gel cell 12-volt? I'm pretty sure they do nowadays.
They do, and I think my plan is to upgrade to a lithium ion for it.
Yeah.
Just because we want to be able to go and kind of boondock with it. And with the battery, we can at least, when the weather's nice, we can just run lights. And the fridge is 12-volt. And they say with the battery I'm looking at's 100 amp hour. They say with that battery, you can run overnight when it's charged. And since it's got solar panels, it'll charge the battery during the day. And the panel's strong enough to charge the battery and keep the fridge cool when the weather's nice. I mean, when it's 100 and something degrees in Texas, you're taking a generator. But
the wife and I have been wanting to do that for a long time. We've been wanting to do that.
And it's not a big camper. I mean, it's what tongue to bumper is 21 feet, so it's not a big camper, but it's plenty for my half-ton truck, and it's enough room for, we can squeeze all four of us in there to sleep. You're not hanging out in there all day.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Unless it's just a necessity, it's pouring down rain, then you'll hang out in there. But it's gonna be fun. Might get a little fishing in. You never know. So There's some good.
There you go.
That lake we're going to's got some good catfish on it, so we might just go out there and see if we can't catch dinner.
Nice. There you go.
All right. Well, Matt, you got an announcement or some people you want to thank real quick?
I sure do. I would like to thank our Patreon members. We have Mama T and Keith Drennan from Blackthorn Concepts. We thank you very much for your patronage. And if anyone is interested in joining us, we will be having a giveaway for patrons only. There is links in our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube pages, as well as on this YouTube video that we are recording right now. So head on over there, give us all your money or some of your money. You decide. And thank you.
There you go. All right. Appreciate that, Mr. Mustachio. So, Casey, let's go ahead and get it started. Why don't you, for all the listeners out there and the audience, give us a little background of how you got started with super talented individual. Tell us what got you going in this, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Probably I'd say, I don't know, 8 years ago, BJ. What do you think? About 8 years ago ish?
I think, yeah, it's been about 8 years.
Yeah. I've always kind of been into creating things and building stuff and tearing stuff apart and, fixing things, whatnot. And I found Jay Bates on YouTube and started watching his stuff and was just kind of, I liked his editing style. I liked his shop, of course. I liked what he was doing, and I really appreciated like the creativity and the stuff that he was bringing to the game. And we had just bought our first single family home. We'd come out of a townhouse where I didn't do a lot of woodworking or anything at all, really, other than some renovation. But we needed some kind of specialty furniture. We had some spots in the house that we needed shelves that you couldn't go to the store and buy shelves to fit. And so it turned into like, hey, I can make this stuff. This isn't a big deal. And so kind of one project at a time, I started acquiring tools and then started building stuff. Probably one of the first ones that really kind of started the YouTube thing for me was my son wanted a Star Wars themed bedroom. And so I built a TIE Fighter themed shelf that I saw online. And I believe it was her tool belt was the one who initially did the plan set for that. And it was basically just a pine hexagon, basically, for the TIE Fighter window. But it's just a shelf that we painted silver and we threw up. It's still up in his room. And he throws all his Lego builds and stuff all over it, and his, trophy baseballs from games and stuff like that. So
Nice.
But I put that on YouTube and got a lot of feedback from friends and family that had viewed it and said, like, you should put this, or I put it on Facebook. I'm sorry. I threw it on Facebook, and then everybody started commenting saying, like, you should really start a YouTube channel and put this on YouTube. And I hadn't even thought about that. I had consumed YouTube and watched a lot of, like Jay Bates and other guys out there. And I felt like, okay, well, yeah, why not? So I'll double dip and I'll throw it on Facebook and I'll build a YouTube channel. And it kind of just started from there. Watching other fellow woodworkers and people in the community. And I really just focused on the YouTube stuff and building what we needed for our house as far as furniture and projects and whatnot. And posting all that content and stuff into videos and throwing it up on YouTube. And that's really what got the ball rolling and led me to the Instagram side, where I then ported everything over to Instagram as well.
And that's where you and I met, was on Instagram. Yes. And yeah, because I just kind of started about the same time, kind of in the same situation. Yeah, just needed a couple things for the house, and let's go. And
yep.
I can't believe it's been that long ago. Seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, I know. It's same shop. I know everything's still laid out the same way. It's just better tools, but yeah, it's a blink of an eye. But it's also been. I walk around the house, like we'll have friends come over and stuff, and they're like, "Is there a room in the house that you haven't built something for?" And it's like I've always joked that my goal is to have all the furniture in the house be built by me, or built by us, kind of thing. Like during the times that we shall not speak of, when the kids are at home doing in-home schooling, I made them both design desks, and we built desks together for their rooms.
Cool.
We have a Cape Cod, so they have dormer windows, and they have these little dormer spaces. So I'm like, okay, this is your space, this is your confinement. Design a desk, and we'll build it together. My son was not as involved as my daughter was, but she went with me, picked up the wood, brought it home, cut it. She basically built it. I kind of taught her as we were going, but she was using the domino and table saw and all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, who's the older, your son or daughter?
My daughter. She's
okay.
Yep. She's actually in college now. She's
God.
Yeah, it's crazy. But especially you go back and you look at some of those first videos when they're running around,
mm-hmm.
They're little. But yeah, my son's a freshman in high school. My daughter's in college. So crazy stuff.
And now you're building some amazing guitars.
Yeah. Yep.
So how did that start? That's a question I've always
So,
had.
okay,
And
so
I know, but how did it start?
yeah, that's a deep cut because that's one that I've always played guitar. I've always had a guitar in my life since I was young. I'm probably, I don't know, 10, I think, when I bought my first guitar. And it was, I've always had a fascination with them and a passion for them. And then I had a buddy, like a neighbor, that was basically just 2 houses down growing up. And I remember he brought me into his area where his amp and his guitar and stuff were, and he started playing some Ozzy Osbourne on it. And I'm like, dude, that sounds just like the tape, and that was the thing. Like, this was just as CDs were hitting. So it was like, man, I'm like, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, I gotta get a guitar, So I was all like amped up. And I got some guitars, and over the years I just started playing. I was in some bands and whatnot. But it turned into, like, I was working on them all the time, and I was like rehabbing parts of them and sanding them and changing things on them. And I'm like, I want to build a guitar. And this is back before I had woodworking tools and everything. I'm like, I want to build a guitar. So I got to the point where in the shop, like, I had come basically to last year now, and I built all this stuff. I built this furniture. I built these crazy, craft projects and things for people and for ourselves. And I met a good friend of mine now, whose name is Shock. His handle's Shock the Fox. His name's Ty. And he's a local guy to me. And he builds guitars. He builds several a year. And he's like, dude, it's just wood. He's like, that. He's like, it's just wood. He's like, just start putting it together. He's like, I'll help you, if you need anything. But he's like, this is the things that you got to focus on, and everything else is just wood. He's like, so just go for it. And so I really did a deep dive on studying some stuff, and found out that really the most critical part of the guitar is just the neck and the fretboard and the scale length. Everything else is kind of subjective, as far as like the shape of it or the, obviously you can't use like pine or poplar or something like that. I mean, you could, and there are guys that do it, but you want to use hardwoods and stuff like that and make sure you're picking clear grained woods. But yeah, so I just jumped in kind of head first last year, and I built my first guitar over the summer, and then I finished it in the fall. And now I'm actually in the middle of 2 more builds, and my son is building one too at the same time. So we have 3 going right now in the shop. But they're addicting and they're fun. They take a lot of time, and there's a ton of steps to them. It's one of those. I've asked colleagues and friends, about it, like, what's the order of operations? And there really is no order of operations. It's kind of like you can focus on the neck, or you can focus on the body, or you can jump back and forth between the two. It's kind of whatever mood you're in. Like, there's times where I go out in the shop and I look at it and I'm like, no, not today. Like, I'm not in the right headspace to tackle that, thing that I want to do on it. So thankfully I've got a bunch of other projects, standard woodworking projects going for some friends and clients and stuff like that. So I'll jump over to those things and work on those. But for the most part, it's a good therapy to keep me excited to go into the shop and do, something that's creative across the, it's creative across the aspect of, like, there's no 2 that are alike. They're very, very individualized, and they're very, very personal in their own individual aspects. The end of the day, a cutting board is a cutting board is a cutting board kind of thing. But a guitar, you can get really, really detailed or really simple. So it's all on what you want to do. And and that's just the wood side of it. You can get into the hardware side and the electronic side and all that stuff, and you can go down a whole nother rabbit hole of, like, differentiation and how to make them stand out and stuff like that. So I really appreciate the guys that pump out a bunch of cool guitars every year, and and have a really cool visual eye and detail and design element to their builds. So that's kind of where I got into the guitars at.
Nice. And you're building.
You kind of.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead,
Go
BJ. I was just gonna say, Casey, are you leaning when you're kind of like mocking up what you're gonna build? Are you leaning more towards like a Fender or a Gibson, or another like bigger guitar manufacturer to kind of like take some aspects from that?
What I kind of go off of is what strikes my stimulation, like as far as like what the mood that I'm in, like when I'm gonna pick a guitar to build. Like for instance, the second one that I'm building now, the first one that I built was based off of some of my favorite guitars. So like you see, like behind me, I've got like four guitars hanging up over here. And the luxury of having those there is I can take a caliper or a ruler and I can go up and I can measure things that I like on those. And I can pick those points that are like, okay, this is what I'm going to carry over from this one. But then as far as like the shape goes, and this is what's cool about guitars, is like a shape, everything outside of the neck and the fretboard and like the electronics and everything that's in it, that all that perimeter stuff, like your traditional like Fender Stratocaster shape or your Gibson Les Paul shape, like those are just shapes. That's where the woodworking takes over, and there's nothing that affects the guitar side of that, if that makes sense. That's it's completely to whatever the customer or you want for yourself. Obviously there's boundaries to like how thin you can make it or to how, overly heavy and thick you could make it. But I take inspiration from several different guitars that I like. And it could be visual or it could be from owning some, a variety of different ones over the years and thinking like, oh, I like this part of this guitar and I like that part of that guitar. And I want to bring the two together. Like for instance, right now, I don't have it down here, but the guitar that I'm building for the colleague of mine, we looked at it and we were trying to pick out like how much to carve off the top of it, because on a traditional like Fender guitar, like you'll have like an arm bevel. So when you're playing it, there's a comfortable spot that your forearm rests on. And we basically came to the conclusion that we're not going to carve an arm bevel into this guitar because it will change the aesthetic look of the guitar. And that's a completely customer, granted, or you as the builder. If you want to do that, you can do that. It's really up to you and what you want. So that's the beauty of the guitars and looking at different ones for inspiration. It's hard to pick like one and say that's my inspiration and I'm going to follow that. It's usually a variety of components put together. Like think of it this way, like I always go back to looking at like Jay Bates' Miter Station. One of the probably the most popular things on YouTube back in the day was like, that's amazing, that's crazy, that's beautiful, I want that in my shop, but I need to change it to fit my space, or I need to change it to fit my saw, or I'm not going to be cutting anything that's 8 or 10 feet long, so I don't need it to be that big. So you tune all these facets to make it this thing that's more personal to you and fits what you want to do. It's the same with the guitar. As long as you know your scale length and you put all your frets in the proper spot based on that scale length, everything else can be subjective completely to how you want to do it.
Now, are you utilizing the CNC on this, or are you doing a lot of hand? Are these hand cut out and shaping by hand, or are you getting the rough with the CNC and then coming back and putting your finishing touch on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first one that I built, I would say is 98% by hand. The only 2% I would say that I did by CNC was I've cut the pickup routes. So the pickups are the electronic magnetic components under the strings. I wanted those routes to be tight and perfectly placed on the guitar. And by tight, I mean how they fit to the electronic pickup that goes in there. So I drew it up in a V-carve, and I did a bunch of test cuts in white oak. I had some chunks of white oak laying around, so I did a couple test cuts, and I found the fit that I liked perfect. Marked the center on the guitar, made sure everything was lined up. I basically run a V-bit over the center line. So the most important thing on a guitar is the center line. When you're building one, you don't want to lose your center line. That keeps everything symmetrical and in line as far as your neck and your body. So I put my V-bit in and I run my Y-axis down and back several times on my CNC as I'm lining up the guitar on the bed. And then I lock it all down once I know that I'm 100% zero across the Y-axis. And then I have my X coordinates based off my center dots that I've drawn onto the guitar, and I just use the CNC to cut the pickup pockets. For these guitars I'm building now, I've grown and learned a lot more in the CNC with cutting profiles, or like molding tool paths, if you will. So like on the fretboard of the guitar, which is like where the frets and like the strings, like where you put your fingers and play, on that part there's a radius to that. And it's different across a lot of different manufacturers and brands of guitars. You can go from a small radius, like a 7.5 inch radius, like some Fenders have that, or you can go up to like a 16 or even higher radius, which is a more flat profile. Some guitars have compound radius, where they start up at the top at like a short or a small number, and then they compound to a flatter number at the top. So
I didn't know that.
Using the CNC,
I didn't either.
Yeah, so like my Jacksons, I have 3 Jacksons up here right now. They are I believe they're a 12 at the nut, which is like the end where the string tuners are, and then at the bottom where they come down to the end of the fretboard is the 16. And the reason for that is a more rounded or humped radius, or the smaller number radius, is more ergonomically comfortable for like chord playing. So like if you're playing traditional chords, but then a flatter radius is more comfortable and effortless when you're doing more solo type stuff. So at the top of the fretboard, the higher area of the fretboard where you're soloing and stuff like that, you want a flatter radius because it's more ergonomically comfortable. So some manufacturers will do that, but so I use the CNC on that for these guitars that I'm doing right now. Is you just take a profile, you draw a circle at 12-inch radius or whatever, and then you draw a rail in vector like V-carve or Aspire, and then you project that that radius over that rail, which for that length of, call it like 20 inches, and then you put like a ball nose end mill in there, and it will take that out and make that profile for you on the wood.
Oh wow!
So I cut the fret slots as well. So there's some really cool programs out there that you can find this information, but you can basically import a 1-to-1 PDF of the fret layout for the scale that you want to build. And so it's kind of like cheating, because then you just throw it into V-carve and you draw your lines on it. And then the trickiest part of the whole thing is you need like a 0.022 or a 0.023 end mill. And I've got a company that makes those, that sells those online. So I order them from there. And you just have to be really slow on your speeds and feeds. But again, it's just trial and error, and it's like anything we do out in the wood shop, right? You always do some test pieces, make sure you're comfortable, and your gut's telling you, okay, go for it. But, I haven't done like full body profiles or anything like that. I use it more for, as far as the CNC goes, I use it more for stuff like that, like the profiling. I do have a handheld router jig that I can put like a radius on. So basically it's a sled on a jig on bearings, and I can pass it back and forth on like a Y-axis sled, and I can move it across the radius on an arc. So I can do it that way as well, but I wanted to learn the CNC side of it. The nice thing about the CNC is, while it's running, obviously you can be doing other stuff, like we all know with our lasers and CNCs.
So I'm going to throw this out here, because you and I've been doing this for a while, and I know, Joey and Matt, that we've answered these questions, because you jumping into this guitar stuff, and you're jumping straight in with a CNC.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the argument that CNC is cheating? It's not woodworking.
So that's a funny.
You had to go there.
I did. I mean, because guitar making, it goes back eons, and there's all these traditionalists out there that I follow a guy on TikTok that I think it's Greg's Guitars, and I've watched him cut every fret with a fret saw, and he's everything is by hand. And but then there's another one that I follow that everything is by CNC. He is just doing the finishing touches by hand. And that's, is it cheating? Is it not cheating?
That's a tough, I guess it's in the eye of the beholder. The way I see it, I've used it. It's a tool in my shop. I've used it as said tool to achieve things. I've had to still think of, things to do with it. Like okay, so here's some good examples. One thing I will tell you, my wife calls it the CN cheater. So it's a funny joke between her and I. Like she'll come out, like she'll have complete interest in something that I'm doing on the guitar build.
Mhm.
And then if I say, I'm going to cut this in the CNC, she's like, oh, so you're going to cheat. And then it's like, well, no, because I still have to I have to design it in the program. I still have to take that code, put it in the CNC, cut a test piece. And I'm the one that came up with, like what I want to do. So one aspect on the new guitar that I'm building is on every guitar, there's a truss rod. So that's a piece of threaded rod that runs underneath the fretboard, because we all know that wood moves, right? So guitars are generally in one spot in somebody's basement or their house or their living room or bedroom or whatever. And there's not an issue with temperature differences or humidity and all that stuff. So an instrument that's going to be traveling or getting thrown into storage and then put on a plane and then shipped over, someplace, you're going to get a lot of variation in wood movement. So you need to have this truss rod. So the truss rod can be either adjusted at the top, up at the, like where the tuning pegs are, or it can be adjusted down in the middle of like the body, like where the neck meets the body. There's a little like dial wheel on there. So the guitars that I'm building right now, I've got it at the ladder, which is the little dial wheel down in the bottom by the pickup. And on the guitar that I'm building for myself, I wanted to cover that. So I wanted to make a magnetic cover that matched the wood of the fretboard, that I could pop up and reveal this little access to tune the truss rod and then snap the magnet cover back in place. The only way, I shouldn't say the only, but the easiest way for me to do that was to take an extra chunk of that wood, that material, and make a negative cut or a positive cut, basically. So in the fretboard, I would relieve that material, take it away, cut the little holes for my magnets and everything. And then in the cover side of that, I would do the inverse and cut the profile of it and put the pockets in there for the magnets, and everything would be lining up exactly perfectly. So if you check out my channel, you can see some videos of several back now, but where I get the magnet cover, I pop the magnets into it and I snap it into place, and it like disappears because it's perfectly matched and everything. It would take me like several tries, and the wood that I'm using is expensive. So you don't want to mess up at the disc sander or shoot it across your shop because it hits the disc sander or something. So to me, like, that's where the CNCs are cool, and to me, it's just another tool. I have files to build a whole guitar on a CNC, but there's still a lot of hand aspect that goes into it. The amount of sanding and shaping and everything like that. You're trading those hours for changing out bits. If you need to change your bits over, you need to program all of those tool paths. You need to double check all those tool paths and make sure that you're not going to bury the bit through the piece of wood that you spent $200 on. Like, you're trading those hours, the way I see it. So to me, it's more the individual, like the luthier maker side of it is, do you really like using a chisel to carve away, 3 square inches of wood off of a piece of a material, to make the neck heel more comfortable, or writing a program and throwing it in the CNC and hogging all that material out quickly at a uniform planer? It's all in the eye of the beholder, like I said in the beginning. So, like, I've got this one right here. This is my first one. So this was all done by hand.
Wow.
And by hand, it's all, I make a template. So when I start a build, I draw it on paper first, and then I trace that paper onto MDF I use transfer paper. And then I make the MDF template perfect, and then it goes onto the fancy expensive wood. And then that's what makes everything, look good easily. But like all this stuff, this is all 4-inch disc grinder with a lap wheel. Actually, this is an Arbortech 4-inch blade in my grinder, and then a lap wheel. And then, but that's all by hand. All the bevels on this, all the way around, are all by hand, just using a rasp and card scrapers and everything.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, you could program.
You've done the hand tool. You've done one all by hand. So yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything on this thing is all this relief here, all this blending and everything. This is all carved by hand. So even if you were to do this on a CNC, like you could probably make it really, really close, but you're still going to refine stuff like these joints and all that stuff. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of hand hours that go into a guitar. So
the CNC, to me, it's more like you were saying with the, the pickups and everything. It's the precision.
Yes.
I need to get it done right the first time, and then you can work on the art, the artistic side of it later on. Okay. Yeah.
The big thing, as we also know, like especially like you get into woods like maple that burn really easily, is if you're going too slow with a bit, you're gonna caramelize it, you're gonna burn it, you're gonna load up your bit, you're gonna wreck your sandpaper, whatever. And on a guitar that happens a lot because you're using nice hard woods. Ash will do it. Cherry obviously does it. Maple does it like crazy. So like having the speed and the precision of the CNC to just go around something perfectly, there's zero burning. That's another huge benefit, because you know what sanding out, a burning maple is like, right? Like that's
no, thank you.
Sanding out any burn, anything. Yeah,
exactly. So it's again, it's relying on a tool to do something that you can do, but why do it if you've got the tool to do it? In that.
I mean, I agree with you. You've already basically been there, done that. You've built one strictly by hand.
Yeah.
So now you've moved on and now utilizing the tools to make things faster, quicker, to get to the end result. There's nothing wrong with it. I've never seen a problem with utilizing tools like that to do it. Now, there's some people out there, like you say, are going to frown upon you and be like, you're not, but
it's not real. Yeah.
To each their own, right?
Yeah.
Well, and when you look at it, I mean, I guarantee you some of these, some of the biggest guitar manufacturers in the world, it is CNC.
Oh,
they're using CNC here. Now, don't get me wrong, I know probably some of their customs and their one-offs are going to be, parts will be CNC, but everything else is hand done. But these ones that they're selling at, the guitar shops for $150, $200, those are all machine made.
Mass production. They have multiple headed spindle CNCs that they batch up, tons of blanks, tons of material, and they basically all of these machines simultaneously go through, and they can make like 8 necks at one time. Flip it like the neck profile, like the back here, like this rounded section here that you put your hand on. Like there's so many different profiles for that. But I've seen companies that have these giant pre-cut router bits that match that profile. So there's basically 2 bits on 2 spindles, and there's a profile between the 2 of them on 2 different bits. And they run that whole that chunk of material, start to stop. So there's a start and stop point. So they'll drop it in and run it across and take it out. And it's all machine done. The US customs, like you get into like the custom shop, like you were saying, a lot of those, there's a lot of hand work that goes into those, but some of them will start with a pre-machined blank. Okay. So like a roughed in CNC blank that they will still put all that together. And then the luthier that, the reason that the price almost triples or quadruples for the handmade USA stamp is because a individual will then take that guitar and take it start to finish personally. And then usually they sign off on it. There's a certificate of authenticity and all that stuff. It's a big thing if you're a guitar guy to have one of those guitars. But some of those are still starting with a CNC prepped blank. So,
So any plans on making an acoustic guitar?
Yeah, probably in a couple of years. It's one of those things.
That's a whole nother level.
It's a whole nother level. And I understand those levels, and I appreciate the guys that can do it. I've got some friends that do it, and I watch their videos and their work, and it's amazing and it's impressive. To tell you what, when I was doing this one, number one here, it was like this thing, you know, of course it looks, you know, badass and all that stuff. It's like, oh, I built this guitar. It's amazing. But to me, the hardest, like scariest moment was when I put the strings on and I tuned it all up, and I'm like, now I've got to play it, and it's got to be in tune throughout the whole fretboard. Like it's got to work now. It's got to be it's got to be a guitar. It's not a table, right? Like a table, like it's got to stand sturdy and not rock and hold up stuff. But a guitar at the end, like no matter how good it looks, it's got to be playable. And so that was like the biggest like breath hold moment for me. It was like, oh crap, is this thing gonna actually function? But when it did, like I was like, oh my, you know, awesome, you know, I did it. Here we go. But acoustics to me are like, again, that whole next rung up the ladder. Heck, a whole nother ladder level up, if you will, because the woods are so thin and material uniformity is got to be, I would think, have to be such next level, you know, where this is just solid chunks of wood that are all glued together. There's a lot of bracing that goes into an acoustic. If you've ever seen an acoustic being built or taken apart, there's tons of bracing elements within that are glued to the bodies and around the edges of the perimeter to keep the sides and the tops and the back on. There's just these little blocks. I mean, it's a shame that more people can't see the inside of an acoustic guitar for the craftsmanship that goes into building them. You know, it's unbelievable. So someday.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, so someday I plan on doing one. I have some ideas. I'd like to make some custom personal acoustic for like couch sitting. So I'd love to just sit on my couch and just play guitar. And a traditional acoustic is a bigger, thicker body. So when you're slouched back on the couch, you've got this like big, huge, you know, blocky thing on you, where I would like to build some thinner line type acoustics and stuff like that. So those are in my future.
Nice.
Yeah, we have a buddy, Ethan at Hughes Guitar Co., and he builds acoustics. And I believe he's out of Houston, Texas. And I don't know if you follow him or not, but I've gotten to see some of that. I mean, when he puts videos out, and he just recently had that, you know, he got a CNC and it was, he's trying to battle that. Like, am I truly a guitar maker now because I'm CNCing? You know, he was fighting that battle there, but he was showing some of the things that he can make that would take him hours upon hours, fine tuning by hand. And when I've watched it, you know, it's a, you know, all the different tooling he has, and, you know, cause you got to make the curved sides and it's amazing to watch. I mean, I could sit there for hours and watch that stuff, but he would be sitting there with chisels, fine tuning all those little braces. And it's like, and then one little wrong move and it's over with. It's like, dude, now I got to remake it and go back and reshape it. Cause I guess, you know, the sounds bouncing off of all that in there, it makes a big difference, you know? It's amazing to watch that stuff. It is, because that pretty talented individual to sit there and just, you know, that's a whole nother level. You know?
It's got to be part of your therapy too. Like you've got to get something out of it to sit there and dedicate that kind of time to removing millimeters of wood with a you know, a curved chisel or a carving tool. I mean, the stuff, like you said, that I've watched guys do it's unbelievable. And I thought the same thing with building guitars. When I got into it, it was like watching some of these channels, and then I'm going through all the stuff that I've built in my shop, and then going back and looking at these videos and being like, okay, like I can wrap my head around doing that. I can do that. Like keep things straight, keep your head clear, focus on keeping things straight, keeping things flat. You know, joiner is a good thing to have. You know, hand planes are a good thing to have, and a good ruler. And I usually just say single like ruler, because as long as you build the whole thing with that one, even if it's off, it's still going to be uniform across the whole build.
True.
Same. It's like the tape measure technique, right? Like if you got a tape measure that's jacked up, use it for the whole project. Don't use 3 tape measures. So,
That.
Yeah.
it's one of those things like it's daunting to think about, especially when you think about all the steps and everything that goes into it. But when you do it one step at a time, you appreciate it, and you appreciate the people that do it. So it's fun.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing to watch that stuff. There's so many different things that just sit there for hours and just indulge in that content. It's just to watch people make it. I mean, there's just certain things that you just like machining. Machining is one that I don't know. I could just sit there and freaking watch that. Or, kind of like Tony there from Working Dad Podcast said, blacksmithing, that kind of stuff, just watching those guys form that stuff. It's just simply amazing. It just, it's like, I don't care what's going on, but I could sit there and just watch that stuff all day long. It's neat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's amazing watching that stuff. So how many have you built?
So I'll say 1 3/4 right now. So I've worked on a bunch, but the 2 that I've got going in the shop are what I call like in the final stages of like getting ready to start the heavy sanding stuff, where I'll bring out like I've got the Surf Prep like finishing light, the big LED light bar.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is amazing for any kind of flat sanding work that you're doing, because it shoots parallel across the top of the surface, and you can see any imperfections or uneven facets in the body or like anything that you're sanding. So I'll bring that thing out and I'll load up stacks of sandpaper and I'll start going through. And I recently just got some, have you guys heard of Asalix before? Asalix abrasives? So they have a really comfortable little like yellow block. So like think of like a Velcro pad block, but their abrasives are mesh. So they're not like paper. They're like, I can't even.
Kind of like the Merca.
No, not like the
Abernet.
Like if you pick like Abernet is still got a firm aspect to it. The Asalix paper, like you pick it up and it's like picking up a wet piece of paper. Like there's no density to the paper itself, but it's loaded with abrasive, and so it's got a Velcro back. You put it on your pad. The beauty of them is it's a dry sanding system. So you don't need to wet sand, and you can go up to 4,000 grit, I think, with it.
Oh, dang.
4 or 6,000. I apologize if anybody's with that company listening. They have a polishing and they have a buffing kit that you can get. But what the beauty of it is as you're using it, if it loads up, you just clap it off on your leg or on a towel or whatever, and it's completely clean. And now, if you go through like super glue or glue, or you get something on it, you got to like pick it off.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you're just doing sanding, straight up sanding on wood, and it's flat, it's uniform. So again, you get that light or any kind of light, you shoot it across. I'll do like my light pencil hazing across the top. And I'll just start going through it, and it's the flattest, most uniform, even sanding finish that you can get.
So with that type of sandpaper or sand. Yeah, I guess it is still sandpaper. Would that be good for? I've seen some people with the gloves with the Velcro on them, so you can contour sand more. So more for contouring and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, so you can it's completely malleable. Like if you put your thumb in it, and wrap it around your thumb, like you can go around curves or convex. I mean, it's great. Like think of like if you were to cut a bowl, with a CNC, you put a ball nose end mill in and you cut a dish or something like that. You throw that Asalix on, get a rubber glove, like a Gorilla Grip glove or something like that. That's got the rubbery texture on the hands. Hold on to that Asalix, wrap it around your thumb, and then you can go around that profile, or like a juice groove on a cutting board, same type of thing. And it comes with a back. So you can have the flat pad, which is great for flat, hard surfaces, or it comes with like I think a 5 or 4 millimeter thick foam cushion. And again, because that paper is so pliable, I call it paper, but it's not. That abrasive is so pliable that you can do like 1/4 inch round over, you know, profiling, sanding, and stuff like that. So it's amazing for finish sanding. You don't need to go that high in guitars, like if you're doing like oil finish or something like that. But it's good to have that kind of sanding when you're getting into. So like if I were to seal the guitar with epoxy, right? Like I'll like mix up some fast setting epoxy. I'll buff it all into the wood and I wipe off all the excess. I'll let it cure. I'll use those Acelix pads to go back and then make sure everything's flat and uniform, like a level sanding, basically, after I put the epoxy on it.
Okay. So I just looked it up. I guess it's more of like an auto body.
Yes, it's an automotive component.
Okay.
It's one of those things,
makes
right?
A lot more sense.
Think about woodworking, where all these automotive products have come into woodworking. You know, like people using Bondo, people using, you know, high speed sanders and stuff like
primer
and sprayers.
Primer,
Look at primer. Yeah, primer. I mean, one of the best things for uniform sanding is, like, if you're doing contours and stuff, is to shoot like a light coat of white primer or gray primer on something, because it's a monochrome, so you're not seeing wood grain or anything like that. You're seeing the flat surface and the angled bevel, and you sand it all off anyway.
Well,
it's sanding primer.
And that makes sense, because I think Mirka, they were originally an auto body company, because they did it was all air tools. Yeah,
they were all robot oriented articulated sanding units.
And then you look at Surf Prep. I mean, they weren't originally a woodworking, you know, sanding company. I think they did, you know,
they were in cabinet. They are in cabinet, primarily in mass production cabinet facilities, and also in like the big name guitar facilities. So like I believe Fender and like Paul Reed Smith guitars, like they all used the higher end Surf Prep, you know, commercial grade equipment. And then, you know, a few years ago, they got into the DIY realm, and now look at them.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's you know, I think, Joey, your question was like, how many have I built? You know, 1 3/4. These ones that I'm finishing up here is they're really close to the finish line, but there's going to be some, like, you know, nervous tension. One of these I have to dye, so I've got to dye at the top. It's a beautiful bird's eye blistered maple top, and the customer wants it dyed black and then sanded back to like a burst. So think of like a guitar, like a Gibson Les Paul, has like the dark red around the edges and like the lighter gold to the middle. So that's called like a burst on a guitar. Yeah. So this will be a black burst, which will be dyed all jet black, and then I'll sand away the center section on the maple. And because it's a quilted like bird's eye, they call it a blister, and so the high and low spots will reveal, you know, light and dark of the guitar with the black still in it. So hoping that turns out well. I don't like dyeing or staining wood. I like to keep wood beautiful and natural, but it's what the customer wants, so that's what I'm going to try to do for them.
Hey, well, customer,
we all share that feeling with dyeing wood.
Yeah, it's
be a lot of testing on that, won't there?
Lots
of be a nervous step to go through.
Well, that's not wood. You can just go down to the store and buy a bunch of test pieces of it too, and you know,
right. It's right. That's always the nerve-wracking part, is the finish, because, you know, wood's going to react. It could be, you know, one piece, but it could be reacting in different spots differently to the finish. And that is frustrating sometimes, because no matter what you do, you just can't get it to just be perfect across the whole thing. There's going to be something.
There's going to be one spot. One spot that gets blotchy.
Yeah.
We'll see. I was just talking to the wife before I came down here, and it was, I said, this next week is going to be a lot of testing on dyes, because I'm using a leather dye. So it's very, very thin, you know, basically water. So it goes everywhere really quick. So you got to be careful on how you apply it. And I gotta swing by the auto parts store and pick up some of the masking, like the thin line masking tape, because I'm not dyeing the whole thing black. I'm only dyeing the top black. and the back is actually mahogany. The whole back of the guitar is mahogany, the body, but he wants it to be a richer red. So I've got to stain the back of the guitar as well. So there's going to be two different stains.
That's got to be nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah,
to keep it from bleeding in
into the next one. Yeah. So here's my thought. Maybe you guys can talk me through this too. But my thought process is I'm going to do the mahogany back first. The most critical area is going to be like on this one here. So like the most critical area is going to be where the body meets the neck, because the neck on that one that I'm doing is maple. So I'm going to spray that with sanding sealer. I'm going to load the neck up with sanding sealer right here to seal off the grain as much as I can, and then have the body masked, and then peel that masking off, and then mask the maple anyway, because it's already got sanding sealer on it. And I just want to be cautious, I should say. Throw my automotive tape on there, and then dye the whole back mahogany, and make sure that it takes and that it's good. And once that's cured and good, on this guitar, like, I'm not sure if you can see, but there's layers to this guitar.
Yeah.
And there's those thin black lines there are another whole element of wood. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's
barely see. Okay. I haven't seen. Yeah.
Thin black lines that look like Sharpie. Those are actually thin veneer layers of wood. And so on this guitar that I've built out in the shop, has one of those layers in it, and I put it in there not for aesthetics, but I want to use it as a masking line, and so I can mask up to that line and not have it bleed over.
Somebody told me one time, and I know you probably can't do it in this project, but it was taking, and it might have been Mustache, I don't know, taking a razor blade and cutting a line, just kind of the separation, and it'll stop that, or maybe it was Scott. It'll stop that finish from bleeding into the next deal. You know,
that's what I used. I would do that on the American flags that I used to make, so I could keep a difference between the white and the red and the blue for the Union. When I would take a razor blade and I would actually hammer the razor blade into the wood, so it would have that was your break. But I've had the blades fall out as I was staining, and it wouldn't cross that.
It can't jump the gap.
It couldn't jump the gap. Now, I mean, if you flood it on, it's gonna jump it. Yeah. But just if you're trying to keep it light. So the way you make them, the neck and body at this point, are they one piece? They cannot be disassembled
right now. Yeah, they're glued. Yeah, they're glued. So this is what they're call it.
Okay.
This is called a set neck. So,
okay.
So there's a deep tenon on this neck that goes down into the body, and it's underneath.
Okay.
It's underneath the cap layer. So the cap layer hides the deep tenon.
Okay.
So the tenon you're glued on the bottom, you're glued on the sides, and whatever you get on the butt end of it. And it's also tapered, if you will. So this isn't a straight parallel set of lines. It's tapered. So it's basically like a dovetail, if you will.
Yeah.
Blocked into the body, and it's all glued together. If this neck were to ever break, this guitar would basically be junk, because you'd have to otherwise heat all this up and release this neck. You can do it. There are guys that I've watched repair videos where they do it. They'll heat all this up. But to beat the way this one is made, because it goes under the cap and is buried under that laminate layer, this thing would be junk if the neck were to break on this. And the common break place is the headstocks, where somebody leans this up against a table or something like that, and it slides over and smacks the ground and snaps this off.
Yep.
And you can repair them. You can stick them back together. Guys will, Woodshop Mike actually just put out a video where he repaired a broken one by cutting two grooves in the back of the neck, and then you basically insert the light kind of wood, like tenons, if you will, or like dowels, and glue the whole thing back together, and you can resculpt it and shape it and everything, and it's repaired. So, but this is a funny thing. So this is called a volute, this like big peaky crazy carved thing here. That's called a volute. And what that is it adds meat to this angle area of the neck. So if this thing were to fall, it's got a lot more wood to break.
Oh,
Interesting.
So
Not just to stop your hand from hitting the
Right.
tuning keys.
yeah. And this is an obnoxious one. I mean, as far as the size goes, I mean, this is definitely on the bigger size. You won't find any production guitars with a volute that big, but it's comfortable. It's comfortable when you're playing to have that like kind of home base register there. But it keeps, so if this thing were to fall and hit the headstock, there's a lot of wood right here that keeps this joint tight. So, or I should say robust. But yeah, there's so many things with guitar building that it's fun and challenging all in the same line.
Nice.
But,
Yeah, a lot to it. There's a lot to it. I've looked at them before, and it looks very interesting to try one. Just even thought about just buying a kit and just seeing if I could put it together and
I would highly recommend the kit approach. You find a cheap kit for $100 to $150 for like a Telecaster type guitar or something like that. And Telecasters are the easiest guitars because there's no contouring on the body. It's a big block of wood with a profile and a round over all the way around it. If you buy the kit, the neck's already shaped and ready to go. Everything should bolt together 100%. All you got to do is sand it and finish it. So if you're into guitars or you want to give a guitar as a gift, I'd say get a kit first, throw it all together, do a good finishing job on it, and then you're gonna wrap your head around the whole guitar process a lot quicker by doing it that way than starting from scratch and giant blocks of wood laying on your bench and now what do I do? So and there's a lot of good content out there too. So it's easy to find guys on YouTube, guys on Instagram, all over the place. There's guys sharing all the stuff that they're doing. So
this is definitely some motivation for me because I know when we talked the other day, Sonny, I've got plans to make one, and my plan, I know it's going to be an absolutely ridiculously heavy guitar because it's going to be epoxy and black walnut, but I was able to get my hands on a chunk of walnut that was it's the base middle of the tree. So when they felled the tree, it's the part of the tree where it ripped itself apart.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what's going to end up becoming the body of the guitar. And it was, the guy that I was getting some slabs from, he had it laying on a trailer and I'm like, oh, what are you doing with that? He goes, oh, it's junk. It's trash. And I'd watched some guitar making videos. I'm like, yeah, I bet that would make an awesome looking guitar. And he's like, it's going in my burn bin.
Oh, geez.
When I get home, I'm like, cool. I'll take it off your hands, and it's just big enough to get to get the body of the guitar out of it. And it's been sitting under the workbench for, God, I moved into this house 5 years ago, so 5 years.
Wow.
I just need to finish doing the epoxy pours and get it out and cut it. So one of these days I'll get it finished. Maybe that'll be my summer project for myself.
You have to share that with me. I'd like to see that. Maybe I can help you come up with some ideas for lightening the body if you want. There's some good tricks that I've found in lightening heavy dense woods for guitar bodies. So yeah.
So my only fear is because I want to do a clear epoxy so you can see the wood and how it's been ripped, essentially just shredded apart.
Shredded, yeah.
Oh, that would be cool.
If you cut, because I was thinking about having to cut pockets and stuff into it, I would be afraid that you'd see too much of that through the body. But there's enough. I'll send you a picture of it just so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm dealing with. I think depending on which way I orient the body, there's enough meat that will just be solid wood that I can probably cut a lot of, a lot of stuff out of that and still have the solid epoxy.
Yeah.
I even thought about doing some kind of lighting kit inside it to where it would light up the body, do just like a little, something that would run off a 9-volt battery or some.
Yeah. I've seen battery. A lot of guys are doing the LED inlays too on the necks.
Yeah.
where it can hit a little aux switch off a 9-volt battery or whatever, a little coin battery, and they run the LEDs. Don't forget too, like when you do your body, like you have your electronics cavity, so that hogs out a lot of wood.
That's going to determine which way I have to orient.
Yeah, so you'll take a lot of.
You'll have to remember the next time I'm out in the shop to dig that out from underneath the workbench. I'll send you a picture of it, and maybe that just getting it out to send you a picture will be that motivation to do that final pour at least, so I can get it out of the mold that it's been sitting in for all these years.
Yep.
So, well, cool. All right.
Awesome.
Wow.
Anything else that you want to talk about, or anything you guys want to talk about while we're here? You got anything other than finishing that last
guitars?
That last part of guitar, or anything else cool that you got coming up?
I've got normal woodworking stuff going. Last year I built out there's a local coffee shop that the owner hired me to come in and build out all of the counters and serving areas, if you will. So like the whole main barista counter and like the serving bar, and then like a couple little like side, like call them like internet cafe benches and stuff like that. Okay. So built out all the woodworking inside. They came back to me and they want me to add on like a cooler section. So they were going to do a drop-in like stainless steel sink, and they want another addition to the cabinet where the sink is in the top and there's a drain underneath, so they can load it up with ice and put all like the daily grabs in there. Mm-hmm. So they'll have like canned whatever, so
that'd be cool.
They want it to match the facade of everything else that I already built. So I've got that coming up. And that'll be probably an on-site build. So like rough cut everything here and then take the track saw over there and probably be pocket hole, get everything locked together with the pocket holes, which is what I used for most of the stuff over there anyway, that and the brad nailer. But that, and then I've got a local farm market here in town that I've done some work for in the past. They want these mini houses for this kids play area. And by mini, I mean, like, think of a regular shed, like 8 by 10, 10 by 10. And so they want like a miniature barn version of their big barn that they've got there. And they want a miniature market store and a miniature schoolhouse and all these little mini sheds, micro sheds that they're going to like finish all up for the kids and stuff. So there'll be like this whole little mini village. Like think of it, It's a Small World kind of thing, but farm themed. So my brother-in-law and I are going to be doing that, but we're doing all the rough construction. So we'll build the bases on treated timbers, and then we'll build out, ply floors with studded walls. And then we'll just use the T111 paneling on the sides and skin up the ceiling or the roof and everything. But they'll shingle it and they'll trim it all out and stuff. So we'll just batch out the buildings and they'll just do all the hard stuff afterwards. But that'll be good little income stream over the course of the summer there into the fall. But
now I know a few years back you were doing some stuff for one of the local fire departments. You were building out trays and stuff for their trucks.
Yep, I've done
you still do anything else for them?
I would if they ask me. Basically, so I did 2 for our main fire department here in town. 2 of their command vehicles. They bought a brand new Ford F-250 a few years ago. Well, several years ago now for the first one. And that was the concept one. And they had, all these different requests, we want to store the tank, tank and safety pack and mask kit here, and all the boots go here, the cones go here. So they had the whole thing kind of partitioned out, and they had a big like pull out gate bed on it. So they could crack 2 handles and pull the whole thing out of the back of the truck. And everything was accessible from all the way around. And then when they were done, they slide the whole thing back in, close the tailgate, close the camper lid or the topper lid.
Yeah.
And the thing's ready to go. And that turned out really well. So when they bought their second big heavy duty truck, they came back with some altercations to the first one, things that they learned over the time of the first one. So built out stuff for that one. And then a neighboring village saw those 2 trucks at a, like a ladder day show where the kids could go out and climb all over everything and see stuff. This other village over there saw it, and they're like, we wanted you to do our trucks too, but their trucks were smaller, of course. They're just the regular F-150s. And so again, just go back to SketchUp and change everything in SketchUp and make it work. So it was one of those fun projects where they'd come over all the time. They'd have some feedback. They'd bring the truck over, so I had this big fancy truck sitting in my driveway that I could just have the back end open and throw all the stuff in, and my son could jump around and be sitting in a fire truck with all the lights and all that stuff on. Actually, it was actually fun when we took it back, the first one. They let my son and I drive it back to the station for him, and then they threw all the lights on and all that stuff and gave him a little tour of the fire station. So
that's cool.
That was fun. Good group of guys over there. But
nice.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So you were stretching out your CNC and warming up the servos one day, and where's that dust boot from? Is that something you made, or where do you get that?
So the dust boot is from One Guy in a Shop is his handle.
One Guy in a Shop.
Yep.
Okay.
It's one of those. I saw that thing forever on just different explore tabs on my social medias, and I found his channel because somebody had tagged him for a different make and model of CNC. And so when I reached out to him, I said, "Hey, do you have that for the I2R?" And he goes, "As a matter of fact, I do." He's like, "I just updated it." So mine's got the 4-inch port at the top. I think his initial one was like a 2.5-inch port at the top. The little one that came with my standard CNC, the standard one that came with my CNC was junk. Like it couldn't. I had it reduced to go up to 4, or not. I had it expanded to go from 2.5 up to 4-inch, and it didn't do anything. That one that he makes is amazing. If you're doing any like surfacing or any big, kind of set it and forget it runs where that thing's just hogging wood, the bristle brush is fully magnetic, snaps right off. You can see the bit, you can access everything. It's got a simple little like butterfly knob. You can adjust the Z of the boot itself. So wherever you put your bit setter at and you get your bit to the surface, you can crack that knob and let that boot come down and rest on the surface. So you're just at the surface when you're doing your machining. That way you're not destroying your bristles and all that stuff, dragging them into the surfacing bit or whatever. So yeah, look up One Guy in a Shop. He makes them for a bunch of different models, and it's
now, does he 3D print them, or do you buy the file from him?
Nope, it's 3D printed. I got that one from him, shipped to me. And it's still holding up perfectly. It's got a nice little puck that bolts to the servo or to the spindle, and it's got a dovetail on it. And so that's how you can Z adjust that boot.
Nice.
By cracking it loose. But everything fit perfectly. There's no issues with it. And the magnets on the bristle brush, extension, it's all just snaps positively into place. It stays put. I've drug it down. Like I've surfaced like big slabs and stuff like that. And I've had those bristles bent all the way over before, and it stays on. So I've got the Wackerle quick slip, like quick connect 4-inch port at the top. And then I drape my big blue Wackerle hose over. I've got one of those Wackerle like hose hangers, like the wall mount, like J-hook kind of thing. I've got it mounted up above on my overhead racking. So I drape that blue hose over and I let it hang down over the CNC, and I just slide it right on that 4-inch port, and it's good to go. No issues.
Nice. Yeah, I've that thing looks amazing, and it looks like it's got enough. You could put enough volume through it.
I
have an Avid, so that looks like that would work perfect.
Same. Yep. It's Avid is the same as the I2Rs, depending on the models. But from what I remember, the Avids were the same. Was it Avids or was the Axiom? Was Axiom a model?
Probably the Axiom. Axiom is the same as I2R.
I'm thinking Axiom. Sorry about that. Yeah. But so that the base. The problem with the initial one is if your spindle's here, right? The original one is like offset oval, and like the hose is up here. So your spindle's doing all the work down here, but your suction is up here. That one that One Guy in a Shop makes encapsulates. It basically goes all the way around like a manifold. Right. Like the spindle is fully encapsulated by the flow. So
Nice.
and you feel it too. Like I'll even take a brush like on the bed, like if there's any residual, because when you're surfacing, if you go off even with dust extraction, if the bit comes off the edge, you're still going to blow out chips all over the side. So I'll take a brush even, and I'll just brush it back towards that thing while it's on, and it all just goes right up and through the dust collector.
Nice.
So, and it's someone that just upgraded their CNC from 2.5 inch to 4 inch dust piping. That itself makes a whole heck of a lot of difference.
Yes. Yeah. It's a messy machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I made the mistake of one time for the sake of content to leave that dust boot off, and after that one time, cutting MDF and surfacing it, I was like, I knew it was going to do it, but I'll never do that again. Never. I'm like, I don't care about filming it. I'm not going to make that mess. I mean, it's freaking horrible.
Yeah. That's the downside of using the CNC on guitars, because you're so focused on the detail of what it's doing and where it's cutting. Because like I'll prescribe everything. Like, so I'll take a light pencil line and just like, this is where I want this to be. Like if you watch some of my recent videos, you probably saw like I trace where I want my pickups to be, and then that bit I hopefully will cut that same trace. So it's with putting the bristle brush over it with the extraction, it's kind of like, no, I need to see what's going on here. I'll risk watching some dust fly around to make sure this thing goes well. But it's a good collection unit. If you're making a bunch of dust with the CNC, I definitely look that up.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely take a look at that. At some point, I'll get mine wired back up because I had to do a remodel in here, and I still haven't put it back to working again. As BJ's shaking his head,
I think BJ's contesting your remark there.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful storage location in his shop, is what he's saying.
I cleaned it off. There's nothing on it now. It's clean.
Okay.
Baby steps.
All right, there you go. All right, we'll give you that.
At some point, I'll get this shop completed. After 5 years of building this new shop, I still keep procrastinating and have stuff everywhere. Yeah,
you'll never be done. That's our biggest.
I know, but it could be to a point where I can utilize all the tools. And as these guys give me a lot of heck about leaving stuff in boxes, it's just it is what it is. At some point, one of these days, I'll have it completed, and I'll make something, something that I can concentrate on and not have to worry about pulling stuff out of boxes.
Yeah.
To use it.
Priorities will lead you to the boxes.
Yeah. It's everybody gives me hell about it. I can't get away from it. I think we're going to in fact come up with a segment about what's in the box, and I'll just pull
oh gosh.
Spoiler alert.
So Joey, I'll make you feel a little bit better. So us talking about what's in the box and procrastinating. I've had the leveling bags for my truck sitting in a box for almost 2 years now. So when I'm pulling the camper, the back of the truck's not sagging under load.
Yep.
I'm still debating if I want to get out there and put them on before we go camping in 2 weeks. And I know it's a 2-hour setup, and that's if I just want to do the standard bolt up where I just use an air compressor to fill it up.
Yeah.
Now, if I want to, I've got the full kit where I can wire in the onboard compressor and all that stuff, but it's like, I don't know if I want to do it. It's either rainy or cold or too hot, or
you'll stop procrastinating tomorrow. That's the joke.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I got more fun things to work on than put stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a lot of squirrel moments here. It's just like I'll be doing one thing, and then it's just like, oh, look at that shiny thing over there. Let me go over there, and then I forget about this, and then I'm over here, and then it's just like,
That's one of my jokes. I got shiny object syndrome in my shop.
Oh yeah.
Depends on what corner I go to, and I'm like, oh crap, I could do this, and oh yeah, I got to move that. Now we got to set that up. Yeah.
So my procrastination is that if I can't set it up like correctly to be utilized, it's a downfall. I just won't do it. It's just gonna sit there, and I've just like, I'm not just gonna half-ass set it up.
Yeah.
To just try it out, and then it's not set up correctly. So I don't want to use it until that day. I don't know if that's just weird about me or what, but
I just did the same. I had a Creality laser, a Falcon laser, sitting in a box for probably a better part of a year, because I've got my little Ortour set up there and it does everything I need it to do. And it's like, oh, I don't need to set up one more thing right now, but I've got this laser, and I'm like, I don't really feel like tearing the box apart and making a mess and pulling this thing out and trying to put it together. I completely forgot that they come pre-assembled. Like, you basically take it out of the box, you plug it in, you home it, and then plug in your software and you're ready to go. So it's it sits around and you move it 50 times in your shop over the course of a year, or you just set it up and then you spend the next 2 days using it because it's so freaking fast and it's doing such a better job than your other one. So, and you're trying to think everything you can throw through the laser. So I call it shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, but well, I guess, boys, we're gonna wrap this up. This time flew by. This flew by quick.
Was that? Oh yeah, 8:30. Holy cow!
Yeah, it went by quick. Casey, thank you for taking the time out. It's been a pleasure. You're very talented, and I can't wait to see some of these things finished. They're amazing.
Yeah. Stay tuned. You'll see them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So all of Casey's tags are below, all his links. Go follow him, go like his stuff, and like to thank everybody out in the chat for hanging out with us tonight. Please remember to head on over to Spotify or iTunes. Leave us a review, please. That really helps. And also, if you can leave us a like on this YouTube video, would be greatly appreciated. And if you wait after we're done with this, if you could just come back in and leave a comment actually on the video, it helps promote these videos and push them out there. And that's after we end this. We would greatly appreciate it. We want to hear what you think. If you have any questions or any suggestions of topics you would want us to talk about, put them in there, and we'll try to fit them in at some point and get them, come up with a show for that. And and please remember, we're coming up. This is show 87, 13 more shows, and we're going to have that 100th episode, and we're going to have some nice things to give away. So you will have to be present during that live to do it. It's going to be a fun time, a great milestone that we reached. And head on over to patreon.com/Creative Makers Podcast. Check out our Patreon, become a member, and help support the cause. Until next week we have Mr. Ben Conderosa Creations on the show. That's going to be a very interesting show with that gentleman. It's going to be fun. So until next week, thank you everyone. And we're out of here. Have a good Sunday evening. Bye now.
See you.